Who plants a vineyard without eating any of its fruit? Who tends a flock without getting some of the milk? Who serves as a soldier at his own expense? Do we not have the right to our food and drink? These questions were posed in today's epistle reading, brothers and sisters, to the Corinthians by Apostle Paul in the context of criticism coming from the church in Corinth, from some parts of the church in Corinth, that the leaders of the church had certain privileges above and beyond the rest of the people in the congregation. And there was criticism of the fact that the apostles or the leaders of the church would be benefiting materially from the whole experience of the faith community we call the church. The question being, and we get this even today, why should anyone get paid for this? And Apostle Paul tries to explain and rectify the thought. And he says, does not the law say the same? In other words, not only in the Old Testament law, which was the law of the land of Jerusalem, but also any law in the world, whether it's Christian or not, defines that people who work should get paid, and that a situation like slavery, for example, is an unacceptable thing. Most laws. There are some laws which accept slavery, unfortunately. So Apostle Paul says, does not the law say the same? So if the worldly law thinks about it and holds it in high regard, that it is proper that people have a right to be paid for work that they do and for what they engage themselves in on a daily basis, should be acknowledged, recognized, and given a material remuneration. If the law of the land says so and respects this, why wouldn't we in the church respect this? And so he asked all those questions. Who plants a vineyard without eating any of its fruit? Do you expect a farmer to plant the vines, tend to the vines, protect them from pests, gather, harvest, make wine, and not have any benefit from all this work, which amounts to not 1 hour of work, but an entire year's worth of work? Who tends a flock without getting some of the milk? Do you expect a shepherd to wake up 2 hours before sunrise to milk the sheep, every one of them, protect them, take them out to graze every day, not to get some of the milk? Who serves as a soldier at his own expense? Do you expect that people fight for you if you don't pay them? How will they fight for you? Now, of course, this points to the whole profit motive that exists in society and in normal civic behaviour. The profit motive being the motive of people to do certain work because they will gain profit, that they will be paid. Can we have it any other way? Do we not have the right to our food and drink? How do you expect workers, whether they are of the church or not of the church, to get food and drink if they're not paid? Once again, this is not talking about 1 hour of volunteer work or 5 hours of volunteer work. This is full-time commitment to making all this happen and come together. And he quotes a part of the Old Testament, and it says, "It is written in the law of Moses, you shall not muzzle an ox when it is treading out the grain." You shall not muzzle an ox, so basically put a guard over its mouth so that it doesn't eat the grain, that it is helping you cultivate the field and collect, or harvest rather, at the moment of harvest. Can you imagine that situation? You want the ox to expend all its energy in the harvest, in the collection of the grain, and the ox is obviously looking at the grain, and you're not giving it the opportunity to eat some of that grain. Can you see what happens here? Now, of course, Apostle Paul says, is it for oxen that God is concerned? Is that why God expressed this injunction? Does he not speak entirely for our sake, for human sake? It was written for our sake, says Apostle Paul, for humans, for us, not for the oxen, although it applies to the oxen too. Because the ploughman should plough in hope, and the thresher thresh in hope of a share in the crop. That's how it works. That's how our psychology works. That's how people will get food on their table. He continues, if we have sown spiritual good among you, is it too much if we reap material benefits? In other words, the apostles, the leaders of the church, the teachers of the church, the workers of the church inspire, teach, give people guidance, give them the parameters of life and the purpose and meaning of life. It's not theirs. They share this with them and change people's lives for the better. And have, if we use this analogy, sown spiritual good in people's hearts and have made them better people, more hardworking people, better family people. And should these people not consider to give some material benefit back to these workers? Should we expect that people, in this case, in the faith community of the church, not be paid? We put ourselves in the same position as the Corinthians who had the same complaint if we do that. Of course, the workers of the church cannot ask for pay, but what should happen, the right way or the right order that this happens, is that the congregation, the church as a body, expresses this recognition and expresses the appreciation through material benefit. In the old days, it could have been food, sharing of food. It could have been the sharing of material goods in kind, so the sharing of grain or animals. In the Old Testament, we have all the workers of the temple being fed from the temple, so whatever was brought to the temple, part of it was given as sacrifice, as part of the worship, and part of it, grain or animals of sacrifice, was then shared out to the workers of the temple. So there is a correlation here with the Old Testament and church practice. And this is not begrudged by Apostle Paul, as it should not be begrudged by any one of us in the community. but we should do it out of our own volition and our own love and appreciation for the workers of the church. This includes the priests, the chanters, the workers, the cleaners, and everyone else who involves themselves more than a volunteer basis. So, brothers and sisters, if we can take this message, I suppose this had to be a message at some point in the year, that this be clarified, because that complaint or sentiment is still out there. People still feel that there should be no remuneration in the church. But it is clear from the Bible that it is perfectly acceptable. Now, Apostle Paul does go a step further, and he says, now, even though we have that right, I've now explained to you that it's perfectly okay that people get paid through the church, I have not made use of this right, says Apostle Paul. He says, I'm not going to let even that criticism, as rightful as it is, get in the way of, or becoming an obstacle in the way of people discovering the gospel of Christ. Now that's Apostle Paul. And to the extent that we can, the workers of the church also follow that example to the extent that we can. If we can work another job, we can, and we volunteer or give of our time to the church. If we are, however, fully committed on a full-time basis to working in the church, as you can understand, there is no other choice. So where we can, we do it. That is, refuse payment. But where we can't, that too should not be begrudged. See how things are balanced according to each individual and each community. Enough said on this question. May we all consider where we fit in this picture and continue growing, cultivating the vineyard of the church without begrudging others. Amen. Our warm wishes to all fathers in the community, as it is the civic day of Father's Day, and wishing all of you blessed years and constant growth and spiritual development. Thank you for joining us.